What if you woke up tomorrow, in the Middle Ages, as a woman? No rights, no protection, no way out. The air reeks of smoke, sweat, and fear. The nearest doctor believes in bloodletting and leeches. And if you speak out of turn, you might not see another sunrise. A night, we're stepping back into a time when being born female was a danger in itself, where survival wasn't just hard. It was a daily battle against poverty, childbirth, violence, and silence. Forget what fairy tales told you. Medieval life wasn't flowing dresses and castle banquets. It was cold, cruel, and unforgiving, especially for women. So, before we enter the village gates, hit that like button and subscribe, but only if you're ready to face the brutal truth about history's dark side. Drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is there. It's always wild seeing how far our tribe reaches. Now, dim the lights, take a breath, and brace yourself, because you've just been dropped into the 14th century. And trust me, in this world, being a woman is the first strike against you. The fire is low now, just a faint glow pulsing beneath the logs. You hear the whisper of night beyond your walls, the hush of wind over rooftops, the silence folding around your body like linen. Let your breath soften. Let your limbs grow heavy. This is a quiet place, a place of slow time, a place of listening. Welcome. Tonight, we will drift through shadows and embers. Together, we will return to a world long gone, a world that once was and yet still echoes faintly beneath the surface of our own. You are about to slip through a door hidden behind centuries, its hinges groan quietly like a barn left long shut. You will step through that door, barefoot, slow, heart steady. On the other side lies a time known as the medieval world, not a storybook land of castles and knights, but something more. Lived in, colder, rougher, more ordinary, and far more difficult, especially if you were born a woman. This story tonight is not told with anger, nor with pity. It is told the way snow falls, quietly without force, soft but certain. There will be no shouting, no clashing swords, no blaring horns or galloping hooves, only the worn leather of old shoes, the murmur of distant prayers, the weight of wool against skin, the smoke of cooking fires rising into pale gray skies. This is not the kind of history you memorize. It is the kind that seeps into your bones. Tonight, you will try to survive a single day in the Middle Ages as a woman. Not a noble queen, not a legendary heroine, just a woman, perhaps a baker's wife, a washerwoman, a tenant on borrowed land. Your world will be small, but it will be filled with texture, breath, labor, silence, and longing. You will wake in darkness and straw. You will bend your back before the sun breaks the horizon. You will carry, you will scrape, you will cook, you will serve. You will smile when you must. You will obey. You may dream, but only a little. Do not worry. You will not be alone. I will be with you, just beyond the edge of thought, whispering gently, calmly, without judgment. I will be the voice at your shoulder as you lift the iron pot, as you pull the wool over your arms, as you lower your eyes to avoid a man's gaze. You do not have to stay awake. In fact, you may find yourself drifting, gently, before the cock crows or the bread is sliced. That is perfectly fine. You do not need to hear every word. This story is patient. It will wait for you, and if sleep comes for you in the middle of it, as I hope it does, then let it carry you softly. Let your breathing slow. Let your mind wander like a candle flickering behind old glass. History has always been loud, written by men with pens and weapons. But tonight it will be quiet, told through the calloused hands of women, through laundry soaked in cold river water, through the slow churn of a butter paddle, through lullabies murmured under smoky rafters, through patience, resilience, and endurance uncelebrated. In this world, silence is not empty. It is heavy with meaning, and in that silence we will listen. To stories never shouted, to voices never written, to lives once lived in the hush of centuries. Breathe. You are safe. The fire still glows. The wind is only passing. If your eyes close, they close. If your thoughts wander, let them wander. This night is yours. This sleep is yours. This story is only beginning. When you are ready, we will open that door together, and we will begin. You sleep, not in the way you usually do, not in your familiar bed, not wrapped in soft modern cloth, not surrounded by the constant low hum of electricity behind the walls. No, this sleep is heavier, older. It comes from a deeper place, where time is slower and breath is thicker. The world, you know, begins to dissolve at its edges. Sounds become distant. Your limbs loosen. Thought drifts like mist. You are falling inward now, gently, as if into a pool whose surface no longer reflects what it once did. And when your eyes open, they do not open to the ceiling you remember. They open to the low, dark hush of another world. You lie on your side. The floor beneath you is hard-packed earth, uneven, smelling faintly of old straw, soot, and cool clay. The mattress beneath your ribs is little more than a sagging sack stuffed with husks and hay. It crinkles when you shift. Your shoulder presses against its scratchy surface, and you feel the old indent of someone else's weight, perhaps your own, perhaps another's, pressing back at you. The light is dim. Not the familiar gray glow of street lamps behind a curtain, but a paler, more patient light. It leaks in through wooden shutters just slightly cracked. It is early, earlier than you would usually rise. A coldness clings to everything, the kind that settles deep in the bones of a house and does not lift until midday. There is no glass in the windows, only rough-hewn wood. The shutters have gaps in them, and the wind speaks softly through the cracks. Outside, a rooster calls in the distance, not proudly, but like a sigh. A low, ragged crow that breaks the silence. The air inside is smoky and damp. The hearth, built of uneven stones, holds the ghost of last night's fire. A thin curl of smoke still rises from beneath the ashes, winding upward like a question into the rafters above. You can smell it. The familiar but foreign scent of burned peat and damp wood. It clings to the thatched ceiling, to your clothes, to your hair. Your body is wrapped in coarse wool. Not a nightgown. No, just the same long undertunic you wore the day before. It itches slightly at the neck, heavy around the arms, stiff from repeated wear. The weave is loose, not dyed, a natural beige gray like sheep's wool before it is combed clean. The smell of lanolin still lingers faintly in the fabric, a quiet reminder of its origin. You hear movement behind you, a soft stirring. Someone else rises nearby. Perhaps your sister, perhaps your mother, perhaps you are the mother and the stirrings belong to a child. You cannot say yet. You only know that you are not alone, and the day is already calling. When you sit up, the cold meets you fully. Your breath clouds the air. The floor is uneven beneath your bare feet, and the chill of it pushes a low hiss between your teeth. You reach for your outer garments, not hanging in a closet, but folded neatly in a rough wooden chest by the hearth. A cloak of heavy wool, a bodice you must tie, a kirtle to pull down over your tunic. All of it smells faintly of smoke, of lye soap, of the skin that wore it before. There is no mirror, no glass to see your reflection. You smooth your hair with your fingers, tug it back from your face, fasten it in a way that will keep it hidden and practical. Vanity is not expected. Cleanliness is a luxury, not a standard. The door groans as it opens. Not a modern hinge, but wood, grinding against wood. You step out into the world, and the world answers. Mist hangs over the land like a breath held too long. The sky is pale and soft, as if wrapped in wool. The ground is wet, not from rain, but from the lingering damp of dawn. Your shoes, made of stitched leather, already soak slightly through as you walk the path away from your door. The village stirs. Around you, quietly, slowly. Smoke rises from neighboring chimneys. A child calls out, half awake, from another doorway. Chickens scratch at the dirt. Somewhere, water splashes gently as someone fills a wooden pail from a well. You do not hear cars, or phones, or even voices raised in greeting. Everything is softer here, calmer. Harder, yes, but also quieter. The air is thick with smells: earth, dung, fire, wool, damp wood, and the faintest hint of rising bread. The kind of scent that clings to the folds of cloth and to the inside of the nose long after it is gone. This is the world of the Middle Ages. Not the clean, dramatized world of costumes and plays, but the real one, full of mud, full of quiet, full of labor, full of rules you did not make but must obey. Your stomach grumbles already, though there is little to eat yet. The warmth of your home, if it can be called that, fades behind you. The day awaits. You will tend the fire. You will fetch the water. You will grind the grain, or sweep the floor, or scrape the last bits of fat from a worn wooden bowl. You may have children to wake, or animals to feed, or you may still be young yourself, unsure what kind of life lies ahead. But this is your world now. The year is sometime in the late 1300s, though no one around you would ever speak of it that way. Time is not measured in numbers here. It is measured in sunrises, in seasons, in the turning of soil and the lighting of lamps. Let the modern world fade now. Let your hands grow rough, your voice grow quiet, your back begin to bend. You are a woman of the village, or perhaps a servant, in a larger house, or perhaps something else entirely. We will find out soon enough. You have survived the night. The day has begun. Let us begin with the rules of this world: how one moves, how one dresses, how one obeys, and how one stays safe. For in this time, the rules are not just guidelines. They are survival. Shall we walk through them together? You dress slowly, not because you are lazy, but because each layer has meaning, weight, and purpose. Clothing is not simply worn. It is lived in. It shields, it signals, it constrains, it reveals. And for you, a woman of this time, each thread is threaded with expectation. The first layer closest to your skin is your chemise. It is made of linen, a fabric smoothed by the hands of many washerwomen before it ever touched you. It is soft where it has worn thin and stiff where it has dried too quickly in cold air. When you pull it over your head, it falls loosely around you, smelling faintly of lye soap and smoke. The neckline is open enough to breathe, but not enough to tempt. You are not meant to show much, not unless your station is one where others dress you for show. Over the chemise comes your kirtle. It is heavier, woven from wool, dyed dull blue with woad, or left in its natural sheep gray. It is fitted more tightly at the bodice, laced up the front or sides with narrow cords. The fabric presses softly into your ribs. It holds your form, but not to flatter, to contain, to support, to mark you as prepared, proper, decent. The sleeves are long, often tight. If the day is especially cold, you wear another pair of detached sleeves, buttoned or tied at the shoulder. You feel their weight dragging slightly as you move, the wool prickling at your arms with every gesture. If you must work, and you almost always must, the sleeves are rolled back, pinned neatly with a bone clasp, revealing wrists red from the morning's water. Around your waist, a belt of leather, worn but serviceable. From it hangs a pouch, or perhaps a knife. Tools, not ornaments. Anything else would be excess. And excess, for your kind, is suspicious. Your feet are wrapped in hose. Not elastic stockings, but thickly knitted wool, scratchy and warm, wound and tied carefully so as not to slip. Over them, leather shoes. Hard, flat, simple. They mold to your foot like a second skin, though they allow little forgiveness on rocky roads. Their soles are thin, their seams imperfect. Rain and cold find their way in. You are used to it. If you leave the house, your hair must be covered. Modesty is not a suggestion, but a duty, a linen wimple or veil, perhaps both. If your age or faith demands it, drapes over your head and neck. Your hair is braided tightly first, wound into coils or a bun. Loose hair is for girls or scandal. The whole of you is wrapped, restrained, and made presentable. There is warmth in your clothes, but also weight. There is comfort, but never indulgence. And always there is the scent. Wool, lye, fire, skin. A woman's scent, earned by hours of wear and days of work. You do not own a mirror. You see yourself only dimly in polished metal or in water. You do not dress to see yourself. You dress to be seen as decent, as godly, as obedient, or simply as belonging, and when others look upon you, they read your clothing like a silent sentence. It says what you are not, what you may become, and what you must never try to be. You carry that message now, in every step you take, the rules of fabric and thread, whispered over centuries, woven into your very skin. You learn early that it is not only what you do that matters, it is how you do it. It is how you lower your eyes, how you fold your hands, how you speak, not just the words, but the shape of your tone. Your body is always saying something, even when your mouth is silent. And in this world, silence often says the most. You keep your chin lowered when in the presence of someone above you. A man, a priest, a lady of rank, even a merchant who owns more than one pair of shoes. Direct eye contact, unless explicitly invited, is a boldness. And boldness in a woman is often mistaken for defiance. Defiance is dangerous. So your gaze drops naturally, not as submission, not as fear, but as survival, a learned rhythm of living. Your hands are rarely idle. In company, they are folded or occupied. Idle hands suggest leisure. Leisure implies laziness. So you sew, or spin, or press the wrinkles from your apron. You do not fidget. You do not let them wander. They are tools. Useful, humble, clean, you do not gesture widely. You speak with economy. If you greet someone, you do so with careful tone. If it is a friend or equal, you might smile gently, nod. You might say, "God give you good day," or simply, "Good morrow" if the sun has risen. If it is someone of rank, you curtsy, a small bend of the knees, subtle but clear. Your hands stay at your sides or clasped at your waist. Your voice is low, not just in volume, but in intention. Speech, when permitted, is slow and measured. You do not speak before being spoken to, especially in a hall or church. You do not interrupt. You do not correct. And if you must decline, you do so without the word no. You find other ways, softer ways. Perhaps a quiet, "I do not think I should," or "I fear I am not able today." Firmness is wrapped in gentleness, resistance hidden in deference. At table, if you are lucky enough to be seated at one, your behavior is watched. You do not eat first. You do not take too much. You wipe your fingers on bread, not cloth. You do not let your elbows rest upon the board. You keep your back straight, even if it aches. You chew quietly. You offer thanks, even when you are still hungry. If you laugh, it is not loud. If you cry, you do so in private. Public display of emotion is considered weak, or worse, unruly. So you master the small, dignified silence. You smile when needed. You speak when called. You walk a line so narrow that sometimes you forget where your own feelings begin. There is grace in this, but also weight. The burden of manners is not shared evenly. A lord may bellow. A knight may boast. A priest may lecture for hours. But you, a woman, must be quiet, must be pleasing, must never speak too much truth at the wrong time. You learn to read the room not with your eyes, but with your body. A bowed head becomes your shield, a folded hand your armor, your silence, your safety. This is not deception. It is preservation. It is wisdom handed down not in books, but in glances between women across a field, across a hearth, across generations. And you have learned it well. You move quietly through the world. You do not stumble. You do not offend. You are a presence, gentle, still, constant, like a candle flickering in the corner of the room. From the moment you are born, your world is already shaped for you, not by your own hands, but by hands older than memory. The midwife lifts you up and sees not just a child, but a girl, and in that instant the map of your life narrows, winding not outward into choice, but inward into duty. You will not wield a sword. You will not own land. You will not sit in the circle where decisions are made, but you will be necessary. You will be central. You will carry the weight of the everyday, the quiet, unseen, relentless weight that holds the world together. You belong near the hearth. That is where the center of your labor lies. In fire and warmth, in food and care, in spinning, weaving, washing, and bearing life. You do not walk far from your home without purpose. Wandering is not for you. Your steps must always be toward something. The well, the garden, the chapel, or another woman's door. If you are unmarried, your labor is your dowry. You prove your worth through the neatness of your stitches, the sweetness of your bread, the smoothness of your words. You are watched closely. How you walk, how you kneel, how you behave at feast days. A quiet girl is a good girl, one who will make a good wife, and a good wife, it is said, is the cornerstone of a house. Marriage is not always your decision. It is a bond made between families, between fortunes, between farms and names. You do not choose it, you are placed into it, and once you are a wife, your work deepens. Your days revolve around others, husband, children, kin. You rise before them, sleep after them. You feed them, clothe them, tend to them in illness and in sorrow. You do not ask for rest. You do not expect ease. You are the quiet current beneath the surface of your home, moving always. If you are widowed, your life changes, but not into freedom. Now, you must prove your usefulness again, this time without a man at your side. You may keep a small holding, if allowed. You may run a trade if the law permits, but even then you are watched. Alone is never quite safe, and too much independence is questioned. Some women do find other paths, into convents, into trade, into service in great halls, but these paths are narrow and not easily walked. Most remain near the fire, near the children, near the quiet. Obligations of the body and the spirit. You are not powerless, but your power is quiet, domestic, enduring, not celebrated, not recorded, but real. The kind of power that turns fields into harvest and houses into homes. The kind that survives, even when it is not seen. The world you walk through is not your own. It belongs to those above you. They do not ask for your opinion. They do not explain. But they expect you to know the rules. And not just know them. Follow them. Always. The first rule is this: know your place, not only in your house but in your village, your church, your entire world. You are near the bottom. Most women are, even those married to men of some importance, even those who can read a few words or own a few chickens. Your value is measured not in voice or thought, but in obedience, in labor, in your ability to not make trouble. Above you are the men. First your father, then your husband, then perhaps your son. Beyond that, your Lord. You might never see him closely, but his name echoes over your life like a bell tower in the distance. He owns the land your house sits on. He takes your labor as tax. He rules your harvests and decides when your body must work harder. Above him still are the great ones, nobles, earls, kings. You hear their names in church prayers and whispered tales. They are as far from you as stars and almost as untouchable. And yet their decisions ripple down like stones tossed into still water. A change in tax, a shift in law, a call to war, and your whole life bends to the echo. The church is another pillar of power. The priest knows your secrets, hears your confessions, judges your sins. And behind him stands a wall of unseen men. Bishops, abbots, monks, cloaked in robes, and scripture. Their word is God's word, or so you are told. To question it is not only dangerous, it is unthinkable. And beneath all this weight of order, there are punishments, sharp, sudden, and rarely fair. A woman who speaks out of turn might be named a scold. A woman who strays too far might be named a harlot. A woman who helps another give birth and fails might be named a witch. Punishments are not always loud. Sometimes they are as small as exclusion. A cold shoulder in the market. Bread. Refused. A prayer said without your name in it. But other times they are brutal. Stocks in the village square. A shaved head. A public whipping. Or worse if your defiance echoes too loudly. And the truth is, many of the rules are unwritten. You learn them in glances, in rumors, in the way. Your neighbor disappears for a few days and comes back quieter. You learn by listening, by watching, by obeying. You learn that mercy does not always come, that fairness is not the same as order, and that your safety, as a woman, often lies not in justice but in invisibility, so you walk softly. You keep your hands busy. You bow when expected. You speak only what will not be questioned. You survive. And in that survival, there is strength, not the kind sung in songs, but the kind passed down like a secret between women, quiet, unwavering, and enduring beneath the weight of centuries. You do not wake all at once. Your sleep does not end with an alarm or a bell. It thins first, like mist lifting off a cold field, slowly revealing the shape of what lies beneath. It is the quiet sound of shifting bodies near you, the low rustle of straw, the soft thud of bare feet finding the earth. It is the first crow of the rooster, far off, then again, closer. It is the chill, creeping in through cracks in the walls and through the rough-woven cloth of your bedding. You feel the cold before you know you are awake. Your eyes open to shadow. The fire is dead, just a smudge of warmth under the gray ash. The air smells of wood smoke and old wool and something sour, maybe spilled broth from last night, crusted into the floor. You feel the ache in your hips before you move. The mattress beneath you is little more than a sack of straw. The straw has shifted in the night, leaving lumps beneath your spine, poking at your ribs. You slept curled in on yourself, arms crossed, legs drawn close, trying to keep what warmth you could. You are not alone. You hear breathing, steady, slow. Your children, perhaps, or your sister, or a cousin visiting through winter. The room is shared, always shared. Privacy is not something you expect, nor quiet. You have grown used to the layers of sound, the snore, the cough, the rustle of bodies adjusting to the cold. You reach for your clothes. They are not fresh. They are yesterday's and the day before's, folded neatly beside the hearth, heavy with use. You pull them on layer by layer, linen underdress, woolen kirtle, apron stiff with flour, bodice laced tight. The fabric is always a little damp. There is no dry place here. Not in winter, not in spring. The moisture hangs in the air like breath that never leaves. Your shoes are stiff this morning. Leather that dried too close to the hearth, curled at the edges, hard at the seams. You ease your feet into them anyway. The cold bites your toes through the thin wool hose, but you do not flinch. You are used to the bite. It wakes you in its own way. You move through your morning by instinct. No written schedule, no ticking. Clock. Time is marked by light, by hunger, by the rhythm of animals and tasks. You stir the fire first. Kneel by the hearth, lift the iron poker. Ash clings to your skin. The coals are almost gone, but not quite. You press them together. Blow, softly. A glow returns. You add kindling, splinters of wood, dry bracken. You wait. Flame flutters, unsure at first, then growing. It catches the edge of your breath. The room warms by a breath or two. Not much, but enough. Next comes the water. The pail is near the door, half frozen if it is winter, slimy if it is summer. You lift it, careful of your back. Water is heavy. You pour a little into the iron pot over the fire. Washing water, cooking water, it is one and the same. You will wash your hands and face with steam and cloth, not with luxury. You rub briskly, red-cheeked, eyes stinging from heat and smoke. Others begin to rise. Quiet voices, a child murmuring in sleep, someone coughing into their sleeve. Your husband, if you have one, might rise first, especially if there is work outside. You prepare. His food, bread from the night before, or from the batch still cooling on the table, covered with cloth to keep out the mice. You tear a piece, hand it to him, perhaps a bit of salted meat, if you are lucky. A spoonful of porridge from the pot. You do, not sit while he eats. You serve. You dress the children, or call them to do it themselves. You wet their hair and pull a comb through it. You tie shoes. You remind them not to forget the bread for the mid-meal. You glance toward the light creeping through the shutters. It is time. Outside, the village begins to breathe. The sounds begin low. The slap of boots in mud, the creak of cartwheels, a dog barking without urgency. Smoke rises from rooftops like so many thoughts in the morning air. You pull your cloak around your shoulders and step outside. The path to the well is worn with generations of feet. The grass does not grow there. Your own feet know every dip, every rise, every soft puddle that waits for your step. The sky is pale above, a dull woolen gray, stretching low over the thatched rooftops. The world smells of damp earth and wood smoke and beasts still warm in their stalls. You nod to the girl from the house beside yours. She is bent over her bucket, her sleeves wet to the elbow. No words are needed. Just a glance, a nod, a quiet. Knowing. You both carry the same weight. You both woke in the same cold. You both pulled your bodies into motion before the sun finished rising. By the time you return, your hands are raw. Your shoulders ache. The fire is stronger now. The day has begun in full. There is dough to knead. There is wool to card. There are pots to clean and chickens to feed. There is bread to break for the children and prayers to whisper before anyone leaves the door. You will not rest again until the light begins to fall. But for now, you are moving. You are working. You are alive inside this slow, heavy morning, and the world expects you to keep going. You begin before anyone is hungry. In this time, food is never instant. There is no cupboard of shining packages. No refrigerator humming quietly behind you. No knob to twist for heat. Everything must be prepared. And before it can be prepared, it must be grown, gathered, bartered, or stored. Food is not a promise here. It is an achievement. Each meal is made from what was not eaten the day before, or what can be coaxed from the earth, the garden, the henhouse, or the shared oven in the center of the village. Your kitchen is not a room. It is simply the space around your hearth, a few shelves, a table, scarred and smooth, hooks on the wall, a fire that never goes cold. Even in summer it burns. Slower, perhaps, but always burning, always waiting. You begin the morning by coaxing life back into the embers. The coals are coaxed gently, the kindling laid with reverence. You breathe life into them with shallow puffs, eyes squinting from smoke. The fire responds, slowly, like a shy animal, then faster, hotter. You place the pot above it. Iron. Thick. Soot blackened from years of use. Inside, water begins to warm. Into this you will add whatever you have. Not what you want, but what remains. Perhaps a heel of yesterday's bread, torn and softened. A few leeks, chopped coarsely, the green ends already turning limp. Some barley, if the harvest was generous. Salt, if you have it. A bone, if there is meat still clinging to it. You do not know if it will be soup or broth or something in between. It does not matter. It will be hot, and that is enough. You need dough next. Flour from rye, rough ground, coarse between your fingers. It smells faintly musty, not unpleasant, just tired. You mix it with water, salt if there is any, and perhaps a splash of yesterday's sour leaven. Your hands work rhythmically, folding the dough over itself again and again. The motion is slow, not rushed. There is no time to rush. Time here is not counted by hours, but by tasks. You set the dough near the fire to rise. You cover it with a cloth, not clean, but well washed. The heat is uneven, so you check it often. You watch for bubbles in the dough's belly. You listen for the crackle of the fire. You feel the warmth, with the back of your hand. There are no thermometers. Only instinct, only memory, only the murmurs of your mother's hands in your own. When it is ready, you shape it into a rough round. You slice the top with a knife, not for beauty, but so it bakes evenly. If your village has an oven, a shared one, heated once a week, you will carry it there wrapped in cloth. If not, you bake it at the edge of the fire in a covered pot, coals heaped on top. The crust will be hard, the center dense, but it will feed you. And bread that feeds is bread enough. Midday arrives not with a bell, but with hunger. You call the children, or they come on their own, drawn by scent. If you have a husband, he returns from the fields. If your mother lives with you, she is already seated, hands folded in her lap, waiting quietly. You serve the food. You do not eat first. That is not your place. You portion carefully, not out of stinginess but out of fear. You must make it last. The bowl is passed. A wooden spoon, shared. There is a little talking. Eating is not a celebration. It is a necessity. You chew slowly. The bread is dry but warm. The broth thin but fragrant. There are no spices, save salt, or wild herbs. Thyme, if the season has not yet taken it. You might taste nettle, or sorrel, or garlic from the garden. Each bite is something familiar. Nothing is wasted. Even the crumbs are brushed from the table into a hand, gathered for later. There is no dessert. That word does not belong here. But perhaps, if luck has leaned your way, there is a slice of dried apple, or a bit of honey scraped from the edge of a comb. These things are kept secret, given only to children on feast days, or when the sky has been especially cruel. A sweetness to remember the sun by. You clean the bowls with bread, scraping them until the wood shows its grain again. The pot is refilled. with water. It will sit until evening. The fire dies down, its labor done for now. Your hands are red from the heat. Your sleeves smell of smoke. Your back aches from standing. But the family is fed. For now. You begin again tomorrow. You always do. The dough, the water, the waiting, the silence around the hearth, the whispers of boiling and stirring and chewing. You carry the kitchen in, your body. Its patience, its pain, its promise. It is a quiet art. No one applauds it. No one sings of it, but it feeds the world. You work not because you choose to, but because the day does not exist without it. The morning has barely settled before the first chore calls to you, not with noise, but with absence. A thing undone always makes itself known. The empty bucket, the cold hearth, the pile of laundry that still smells of sweat and soil. There is no list, only a rhythm, a way of moving through the hours like water through grooves in the earth. You begin with the washing. If it is laundry day, and there is no fixed calendar, only the evidence of need, you bundle the clothes in your arms and make your way to the stream, or to the trough behind the house, or to a tub in the yard if the weather allows. Your hands are already cold by the time they meet the water. The shock stings. You do not flinch. You kneel, back bowed, fingers reddening with each dunk and twist. The linen is stiff, the wool heavy. You beat it against stone or scrub it with a handful of rough lye soap. Your knuckles ache. Your sleeves darken with spray. But slowly the cloths lighten. Not white, never white, but clean enough for decency, for respect. You hang them where the sun will find them. If there is no sun, they will dry anyway. Slower, heavier, taking on the smell of damp wood and earth. You smooth them with your palms. You press them into shape. There is a kind of peace in this. Quiet repetition, the sound of dripping, the warmth in your shoulders, though it is an ache. You breathe through it. You do not pause long. Next comes the spinning, if the season allows it. You sit near the light, spindle in hand, wool carded and waiting. You twist the fibers between fingers and thumb, draw them out like thread from air. The spindle turns, dangling, gently. The wool stretches thin and strong. You do not think while spinning, or rather, you think differently, not in words, but in rhythms. In the soft hiss of the fiber parting, in the creak of the chair beneath you, in the breath that catches. Now and then, when your thoughts wander to hunger, or to someone who has not yet returned. In summer, the chores shift. You are in the garden, knees pressed into soil, fingers black beneath the nails. You know every root by feel, carrot, onion, beet. You know when a plant is too thirsty to speak, when it is beyond saving. You water carefully. You weed relentlessly. You do not waste a sprout. Every leaf could become soup. Every stalk could become a meal. In autumn, you help with preservation. You gather, peel, dry. Apples are sliced thin, strung up on twine. Herbs are bundled, hung to crisp above the hearth. Beans are shelled. Grains are threshed. You turn food into time. Every jar, every sack, every string of herbs is a promise that you will have something to feed them with when the land goes, silent under frost. In winter, the labor moves inside. You patch clothes, you mend shoes, you rub oil into the cracked leather of a belt, you boil bones into broth, simmering for hours until the smell seeps into your skin. You help churn butter if there is cream to spare, your arms aching with the steady, splashing turn. You sweep, you scrape, you carry ash out into the snow, and always there are the animals. The chickens must be fed, their eggs collected before. Frost cracks the shells. If there is a pig, you feed it with scraps, thick porridge, yesterday's peelings. If there is a cow, you know its breath. You know the sound it makes when it is content and when it is not. You milk it carefully, rhythmically, whispering to it as if it were another child. You do all this not for praise. Praise is rare. The work is expected. It is as invisible as breathing. But still, you do it. You do it because the house depends on it, because the village depends on it, because your survival is stitched into every bent spine, every reddened hand, every footstep worn into the earth between here and the stream. There is no rest except in the moments between tasks, and even then, your eyes are watching. The fire, the child, the edge of the sky. Something always waits. Something always needs you. Sometimes in the stillness between chores, you sit, just for a breath or two. You stretch your back. You close your eyes. You listen. You hear the wind through thatch, the echo of laughter from another doorway, the distant ring of a hammer. Life continues, and you rise again. Because this is what the day demands. Quiet movement, constant labor, a kind of grace that lives in the doing. No applause, no audience, just the soft unfolding of a life shaped by hands that never stop. Leisure is not a daily visitor. It is rare. It is quiet. It does not announce itself boldly, but slips in when work is done, or at least when the day has grown too dark to do any more of it. You do not expect rest. But sometimes it comes, and when it does, it is treasured like a coin dropped by accident. Unexpected, gleaming, not meant for you, and yet somehow yours. In the evenings after the last pot has been scrubbed, after the fire is low but still breathing, there is stillness. Not silence exactly. The baby may cry, the wind may rattle the shutters, but a softer kind of quiet. A lull, a breath between days. This is when someone may reach for a spindle. Not out of need, but out of habit. Or someone hums a tune without thinking. A melody their grandmother once sang over a cradle or during the shelling of peas. You know the song, too. You hum along, not loudly, just enough to feel the vibration in your throat. There are games, too, simple ones, played with stones or knotted cords. Sometimes the children draw shapes in the dirt with sticks and invent stories to go along with them. Sometimes a carved piece of bone, smooth as river stone, becomes a token in a guessing game. You do not need much to play. A space of time, a little warmth, the flicker of firelight on someone's smile. On feast days, rare, spaced like stars across the calendar, the rhythm changes. You wake earlier, not for chores, but for prayer. You put on your cleanest shift, still smelling of lye and smoke. You braid your hair with extra care. You step into the chapel not only to worship, but to be seen. By neighbors, by suitors, by God. The air in the church is thick with incense and old wood. The floor is cold beneath your knees. The Latin words drift over your head like water over stones. You do not understand them all, but you feel their shape. After Mass, if the day is generous, there is celebration. Food shared in the open, carts filled with apples or onions, flat cakes with honey if the bees have been kind, ale passed in wooden cups, bread torn not in hunger, but in joy. You do not eat quickly. You laugh. You speak without the weight of labor hanging from your shoulders. Children run in circles. Dogs bark with excitement. Even the elders smile more easily. There is music, sometimes. A pipe, a drum, a fiddle, if someone has, traveled from a larger town. You know the dances, not because you were taught, but because they live in your body. You have seen your mother's feet move this way, your aunt's, the other women in the square. It begins with a tapping toe, a swaying hip, and then you are part of it, turning, clapping, smiling without planning to. The skirts swirl around. Your legs, your breath catches. You do not forget your place, but for a moment, you are more than your tasks. You are part of something living, something shared. There are saints' days, harvest festivals, Marriages, these are holy things, but also social ones. They are the village's way of remembering that life is not only meant for toil, that joy, too, must be woven into the seasons. You mark these days with flowers, with colored thread, with laughter held in secret behind a closed hand. Sometimes in winter, when the days are short and the nights long, there are stories, told by candlelight or by fire while hands remain busy. You do not sit idle, even in leisure. Someone knits, someone darns. But while the fingers move, the mouths tell tales. Stories of saints, of sinners, of clever girls and foolish boys, of animals that talk and ghosts that knock. You know the endings, but still you listen. Still you laugh when the punchline comes. Still you shiver when the ghost cries out. And there are moments that do not need a name to be leisure. Standing by the door when the sun sets, watching the sky turn from gray to rose to blue-black. Sitting beside your sister, neither of you speaking, each feeling the warmth of the other's presence like a shared blanket, letting your hands rest in your lap just for a while, not because everything is done, but because for this breath you have done enough. You do not own the luxury of time, but you borrow it when you can, in small, precious pieces. And when joy comes, it is not grand, it is not loud, it is not written into history, but it is real. It lives in bread shared under an open sky, in the dirt under your fingernails during a spring feast, in the echo of music long after it fades, in the smile passed between women who have worked too hard and still find a reason to laugh. Your home is small, not small by comparison, simply small by fact. There are no corridors, no private rooms, no halls to walk down alone. The roof hangs low, held up by thick beams cut long ago from trees that once shaded your grandfather's feet. The walls are of wattle and daub, wood woven and smeared with mud and straw, dry and flaking at the corners, sometimes soft when the rains are long. There is one door, one fire, one window if you are fortunate. You know every creak in the floor, every bend in the grain of the wood, every scent, every sound. It is not grand, but it is yours, and in it lives everything you love. Your family is always near. There is no privacy, no solitude, only nearness, constant, breathing, sometimes irritating, sometimes comforting, always there. Children sleep beside you, curled close against the cold. Your husband may lie just beyond them, his breath slower, heavier. If your mother still lives, she takes the bed near the fire. If you are not yet married, you may sleep beside your sisters, your cousins, your aunts, a tangle of warmth and limbs and whispered prayers in the dark. You wake together. You eat together. You work together. You grieve together. Time is shared, just as bread is, just as silence is. A home is not made of walls. It is made of people who cannot choose to leave each other and somehow learn to live as one. You know them so well. The way your child rubs his eyes when he is tired. The way your daughter's fingers tug nervously at her sleeve when she lies. The way your husband exhales before speaking, always as though words must push through a weight to reach the air. You know their tempers, their hungers, their silences, and they know yours. Affection is not grand. There are no declarations, no poetry. Love here is spoken through action, through hands that prepare food, through clothes patched again and again, through a back rubbed after a long day, a pot of hot water left beside someone too ill to rise. You do not say, "I love you." You say, "Eat." You say, "Rest." You say, "Here, I saved this for you." Marriage is not romance, at least not in the beginning. It is duty first, economy second. It is a partnership arranged to survive winters and raise children, and till fields. But in time, with patience, with forgiveness, With days that string together like pearls on a thread, love sometimes comes. Quietly, not with fire, but with warmth. You notice it in the way he waits when you fall behind on the road, the way he shields your child from rain with his own cloak, the way his eyes soften when you are too tired to speak. These are the things that last. Children are not merely joy. They are labor. They are mouths to feed and bodies to clothe. They bring laughter, yes, wild, uncontained, piercing in its purity. But they also bring worry like a shadow that never lifts. You watch them as they sleep, not in peace, but in vigilance. Will the cough deepen? Will they eat enough? Will they live to see another spring? You have seen too many not make it. You know the price of a single fever. Still, they are the reason for your hands, the reason for your prayers. Their footsteps are the rhythm of your day. Their breath is the rhythm of your night. You live your life through theirs. And then there are the losses. They come often. A neighbor's wife fades after childbirth. A child does not wake. A husband goes to market and never returns, taken by fever or accident or silence. There are no easy goodbyes. There are no rituals to soften the pain. You do not wear black. You do not lie in bed and weep. You wrap the body. You dig the earth. You cook the next meal. And still the grief lives in you, quiet, constant, woven into your work. Sometimes, though, there is joy, unexpected, shy, a baby's first laugh, a daughter's return from another village, a husband's gift, not flowers, but a strip of cloth dyed with crushed berries, more beautiful than anything you own. You press it to your cheek and smile. These are the treasures, the ones not, kept on shelves but folded into memory. Friendships, too, are a kind of family. The woman who brings you garlic when you are sick, the one who helps with the laundry without being asked, the one who watches your children when you are too tired to move. You do not call her best friend. You call her neighbor, sister, good, woman. You say thank you with a look, with a loaf of bread left at her door, with hands clasped in farewell. This is the world of your home, a world of closeness, of shared pain, shared joy, shared silence. A place where you do not always have space to be alone, but always, always someone's hand to hold. And at the end of the day, when the fire is low and the wind presses against the walls, you lie down once more among those you love, and those you have lost, and feel the weight of belonging settle around you like a blanket. You are never truly alone in this world, even in silence, even in darkness, even when no one stands beside you. You are watched, not by men, but by heaven. The eyes of saints and angels, of a suffering Christ and his grieving mother, follow you everywhere, from the chapel to the cradle, from the field to the fire. Faith is not a choice. It is the air you breathe, the shape of every day, the explanation for hunger and death and rain that never comes. God is in everything, and everything belongs to God. You do not ask why the child died. You say it was his will. You do not ask why the harvest failed. You say the village must have sinned. To believe is not to feel comfort. It is to feel structure, to know that the chaos of life is still under someone's rule, even if that rule is harsh. The chapel is small, cool, dim. Its walls are damp in winter and thick with candle soot. A single window, if any, allows a shaft of gray light to fall across the floor. The altar is stone, bare but for a cloth and a wooden cross, and behind it, always, the image of Christ, not triumphant, but wounded. His ribs visible, his head bowed. You know that pain. You carry it too. You kneel when you enter, always. You cross yourself, always. You dip your fingers into the bowl by the door, holy water, touched by every hand in the village. The water is cold. It smells faintly of iron, of stone, of time. You press it to your forehead, your chest, your shoulders. It leaves a damp trace that dries quickly, but you feel it for hours after. Mass is in Latin. You do not understand it. Most people do not. But the rhythm of the priest's voice is familiar. It is a chant you know by heart, even if the meaning is lost. There is comfort in that. In repetition, in surrender. The kneeling, the rising, the bowing. It is a dance performed not for others, but for God. Confession is held in whispers. You wait in line, eyes down. When it is your turn, you kneel beside the priest. You tell him what you have done, or what you have failed to do. Sometimes you do not know which is worse. He listens without looking at you. He murmurs the words of penance. You cross yourself again. You feel lighter, not forgiven, but emptied. Holy days come often. The calendar is full of saints and martyrs, of fasts and feasts. You know their names better than you know, the names of kings. Saint Bridget, who watches over mothers. Saint Barbara, who guards against sudden death. Saint Apollonia, whose own teeth were torn from her head, now called upon by those who suffer pain in the jaw. You speak to them as you would to a mother or sister. You light candles in their names. You promise things, small things, impossible things, in exchange for mercy. You fear the devil, not as an idea, but as a presence, a thing that walks in shadow, that waits in places left unwatched. He is in the forest, in the eyes of a black cat, in the girl who will not speak, in the man who mutters alone. The priest warns of him. So do the old women in stories too old to trace. You keep rosemary at the door. You draw a cross on the window pane with ash. You whisper prayers over your sleeping child, not because you are superstitious, but because you have seen what happens when you are not. Baptism comes early, sometimes too early. A baby must be named before it dies. To die without baptism is to be lost, not to hell, perhaps, but to limbo, a place without light, without touch, without memory. So even the weakest child is rushed to the church, even if they cannot open their eyes, even if they do not cry. The priest dips a finger in water. He says the words. He marks the child's forehead. And only then does anyone breathe. Marriage is holy. So is death. Both are marked with bells, with incense, with candles lit from the same flame. You walk into the chapel to be wed in silence. You walk out with a husband, and someday one of you will be carried back in, silent again. The same doors, the same stone, the same smell of wax and breath and wet wool. Religion is not a part of life. It is the shape of life. It is not questioned. It is not separated. It is not merely belief. It is blood and bread and shadow and air. It explains the world. It holds your grief. And it reminds you that someone, somewhere, is always watching. Not all knowledge is written in books. Most of what you know, you have learned not from parchment, but from whispers, from watching, from repetition, from the way your grandmother clutched her apron when the wind shifted, from the way your mother tied the bedsheets in a certain knot when a storm rolled in, from the neighbor who swore that foxes howling at dusk meant someone would die before dawn. You do not question these things. You do not explain them. You carry them the way you carry your own breath, quietly, always. The world is full of signs. You walk through them daily, like threads hung across your path. A black crow perched above your door at dawn? Do not leave the house. A loaf of bread that falls face down from your hands? Someone is speaking ill of you. You cannot say why you believe this. You only know how it feels when it happens. A tightness, a shadow that lingers too long. Some signs are good. A dog howling during a birth means the baby will be strong. A child born with a caul, a fine membrane covering its face, is said to be lucky or cursed depending on who you ask. Either way, the caul is dried and kept, folded in cloth and hidden. Sailors have bought them before setting out, believing they protect from drowning. You never pass salt directly from hand to hand. It invites bitterness. Instead, you set it down, let the other person pick it up. If someone sneezes while you're speaking, it means you have told the truth. But if a fire hisses suddenly in the hearth, as though spitting, it means someone has lied, and you should watch closely. Chickens sometimes speak, not in words, but in signs. If one begins crowing like a rooster, though she is a hen, it is an omen. Something is wrong, or about to be. You might wring her neck just in case, though not everyone will say so aloud. Death is not to be invited, even in the form of a bird. It is said that if you leave your hair unburned after cutting it, someone might use it in a charm against you. So you throw it into the fire. You watch it shrivel and vanish in the flame. You feel safer then. You do not know why. The moon has its own moods. A full moon means restlessness. More babies born, more fevers, more dreams that leave a taste in your mouth long after waking. You do not look at it too long. And if you see it through glass, which few of you ever do, you must spit into the hearth 3 times to break the gaze. There are sayings for everything. Never sweep after sunset. You sweep away the soul of someone who still needs your prayers. Never walk between 2 old women sitting in silence. They might be mid-spell, though they would never admit it. Never eat the last of the bread if you are a guest. You do not want to take more than was given to you. Newborns must be watched. The first few weeks are dangerous, not only because their bodies are fragile, but because the world is full of things that might take them. A fairy, a spirit, a breath from a jealous neighbor. You keep iron near the cradle. You place a sprig of rosemary under the pillow. You watch for the shadow that does not move with the light. Sickness has its signs, too. Not just in cough or fever, but in dreams. If you dream of teeth falling out, it means death. If you dream of water rising, it means sorrow. If you dream of fire that will not burn, someone you love is lying to you. You do not tell others what you dreamed, unless you want the dream to lose its power. And when someone dies, the world must be corrected. Mirrors are covered. Water is poured out. Bread is broken and scattered for the birds. You do not speak their name too soon. You do not cry too loudly. You light a candle and place it at the threshold to help them find their way, or to keep them from returning. None of this is written, but everyone knows. You learn it in the way a child learns to balance, not by rule, but by instinct, by fear, by repetition. You may not believe all of it, but you do it anyway, because to live here is to live with mystery, and mystery in the medieval world is not a story. It is a presence. It is real, and sometimes when the wind moves strangely, or the fire sputters, though no one touched it, or the child in your arms looks over your shoulder and laughs at nothing at all, you believe completely. You do not read these stories. You hear them, passed from mouth to mouth, often without a clear beginning, and almost never with an end. They belong to no one. Or perhaps they belong to everyone, to every grandmother who smiled with closed eyes while speaking, to every child who listened, with a blanket pulled up to their chin. These are not bedtime stories, not exactly. They are more like weather. They arrive, they surround you, and when they are gone, they leave behind a silence that hums. There is the one about the woman who lived under the hill. Not a witch, not a saint, something in between. She knew how to talk to the bees and how to turn nettles into cloth so fine it could float in your palm. People would come to her when their cows refused to give milk, when their children would not sleep, when their hearts would not let go of grief, and she would take something from them, a lock of hair, a drop of blood, a tooth lost too early, and give them something in return. Not a cure, a path. But one day a man went to her, and offered nothing, and he never returned. You know the story of the girl who wove shirts from brambles to free her brothers who were cursed to live as swans. You remember the part where she bleeds through her fingers, but says nothing, where she is nearly burned, at the stake before the final shirt is thrown over the last wing. It is a story told when girls learn to sew, not to frighten, to remind. There is the tale of a man who danced in the forest with a stag, not hunted it, not feared it, but danced with it under a full moon. The next day he could not speak, only hum. But when he hummed, animals gathered, birds on his arms, foxes by his knees. Some say he still lives, deep in the trees. If you hear humming and see no one, you are supposed to bow, just in case. The saints, too, have stories. Saint Cuthbert, who spoke to otters and slept on the stones of the shore, his breath warming, the sea foam. Saint Winfried, whose head was cut off but sprang up again, leaving behind a spring so clear it still runs cold no matter the weather. You do not question the truth of these stories. Truth, in these matters, is beside the point. What matters is that they are told. Sometimes the stories are warnings, of the midnight rider whose horse never touches the ground, of the woman in white who appears to those who have broken a promise, of the fair folk, the hidden ones, who live just out of sight and dislike being watched. If you feel someone watching from the trees, you do not look, you do not speak, you offer bread, you walk away. Your mother told you the story of the boy who tried to steal fire from a lightning strike and keep it in a clay pot. The fire grew teeth, it bit him, it never went out. Some say that fire still moves beneath the hills, and that is why the ground sometimes steams when it should be frozen. And the world itself, it holds stories. Stones shaped like sleeping nights, rivers that sing on certain nights, trees that bleed when cut. You walk past them every day. You do not always notice, but when you do, you remember what you were told. You cross yourself, or you bow, or you walk a little faster. These tales are not entertainment. They are memory. They are maps. They are a way of keeping your place in a world too large and too dark to understand on your own. You do not know whether they are true, but they live inside you, as old as the cold in your bones, as old as the wind in the chimney, and sometimes, when the night is quiet and the fire is low, and someone laughs softly at nothing in the corner of the room, you think perhaps the stories are not made up at all. Perhaps they are simply remembering themselves through you. There is no single word for medicine. There is no clean line between healing and hoping. When someone falls ill, you do not call a doctor. There may not even be one in your village, and if there is, you do not trust him unless you must. You trust the woman who knows the plants. The one who remembers which roots to boil, which leaves to crush, which flowers to hang above the door. You do not say healer, you do not say witch, you say good wife, you say midwife, you say her. You know the signs of sickness before the body speaks. Them, a change in the eyes, a flush that does not fade, a child who no longer cries, or cries too much, a man who stops eating, a woman whose fingers tremble when she lifts the pot. These are not sudden things. They creep, they wait, they take. You boil water first, always. You make a tisane, a thin tea drawn from herbs dried in bundles above the fire, chamomile if the stomach twists, willow bark if the head throbs, elderflower for fever, nettle for strength. You sweeten it with honey, if there is any, or a drop of strong ale if the pain is sharp and quick. You press the cup to the lips of the sick. You do not ask if it will work. You only hope it will. Poultices come next. cloth soaked in vinegar, or steeped in milk, packed with mashed herbs. You press them to skin hot with illness. Sometimes it draws out the heat. Sometimes it only gives the hands something to do while waiting. You speak softly while working. You do not want the patient to hear fear in your voice. You hum, perhaps. You say the same prayer 3 times, slowly. A leech might be used. Not often, but sometimes. Especially if the priest says the blood is unbalanced. You place it carefully, near the ankle. You wait for it to latch. You turn your eyes away. Bloodletting is a method, not a guarantee. But people still believe. And sometimes belief is the first step toward healing. You learn to watch the moon. Some say you must not treat a wound while it waxes, only while it wanes. The moon must pull the poison away, not draw it deeper. A cut treated on the wrong night may fester. So you wait. You bind the wound in clean linen. You pray. You hope the body remembers how to mend itself. When childbirth comes, healing becomes risk. The midwife arrives with cloth, hot water, a curved blade for cutting the cord. She knows how to listen to a woman's breathing, how to shift the hips, how to turn the baby when it will not come. She has seen too many mothers die. Too many babies turn cold in the arms that waited months to hold them. And still, she comes. Still, she kneels. Still, she whispers the name of a saint under her breath with every contraction. Sometimes a fever breaks. Sometimes a cough fades. Sometimes a child opens her eyes after 3 silent days and asks for bread. You give thanks. You light a candle. You leave a coin in the chapel or a handful of barley at the crossroads, a gift for whatever spirit showed mercy. But sometimes, healing does not come. The herbs do not help. The poultice does not soothe. The prayers echo, unanswered. The hands of the sick grow still. You do not shout. You do not ask why. You wash the body. You bind the limbs. You close the eyes. You bury the hope with the flesh. You keep going. You remember the herbs. You save the strongest root for next time. You add a new prayer to your bundle. You tell the story differently. Not that it failed, but that the illness was too strong, that the remedy was sound, that it might work for someone else. And in this way, healing becomes a story passed down through smoke and memory. Not a science, a legacy. Not always truth, but always love. A love wrapped in rosemary and tied with string, left on a shelf until someone, somewhere, falls ill again. And when they do, you will be ready. You always must be. You do not fear death, but you are never far from it. It moves like weather, like wind at the edge of hearing. It arrives without warning, in a cough that deepens overnight, in a fever that will not break, in a misstep in the woods or a birth that turns wrong at the final moment. There are no hospitals, no silver machines, only straw beds, linen cloths, and the prayers of those who kneel beside you. When someone is dying, the world grows quiet. The house darkens. Lamps are dimmed. The fire is kept low. You speak only when necessary, not out of sadness but respect, so the dying may hear whatever voice calls next. The priest is summoned if there is time. He arrives with oil and a iwi's low voice. He carries the sacrament, wrapped in white. Last rites are whispered like a lullaby. The soul is guided out gently, as though through a narrow doorway. After the breath stops, everything changes. You feel it, not just in the room, but in your body. The air turns colder. Time bends strangely like cloth soaked in water. You weep, if you can, but not too loudly. The soul must not be disturbed. The name must not be spoken until the body is washed. The washing is done by women. Always. Silent hands, steady hands. warm water in a basin, a cloth passed over closed, eyes, folded fingers, pale feet. You speak to the dead as you clean them, not with words always, but with care, with love. You braid the hair. You place a sprig of rosemary beneath the tongue. You close the mouth, if it has not already closed itself. The body is laid out on a board near the hearth. Coins are placed over the eyes, sometimes not as payment for any boatman, but to keep them shut, to keep the soul from watching what it no longer belongs to. A candle is lit at the head, another at the feet. You sit beside them for hours or days. You take turns. No one should be left alone. Not yet. Neighbors bring bread, ale, a silent presence. They do not ask what happened. They already know. The story is written on the faces of those who keep vigil, the tears that no longer fall, the stillness of hands that are always working. Then comes the burial. The church bell tolls slowly. Once for every year the soul has walked the earth. The body is wrapped in cloth, plain usually, though some keep a special shroud folded in a chest for this purpose. It smells of smoke, of lavender, of old hope. The grave is dug by hand. The priest stands over it in his robes. He speaks the final words. Dust to dust, ash to ash, earth to earth. You do not linger long at the grave. You drop a clump of soil, perhaps a flower, if one still grows in the season. You bow your head, you turn away, not because you do not care, but because life must continue. Bread must still be baked. Children must still be held. Goats must still be milked. Grief in this world is folded into the fabric of every day, but the memory stays. You keep a piece of them. A bit of cloth, a carving they made, a smell that catches in the air when the wind blows a certain way. You speak their name in private, later in whispers. You tell their story to children when the fire burns low. You set out a bowl of food on their birthday, just in case they are still near. And then there is the afterlife, not pictured in gold and clouds, but imagined in softness, in release. You believe they walk somewhere now, beyond the fog of this world, in fields that never flood, in warmth that never fades. They do not suffer, they do not ache, they wait. You pray for them. You light candles for them. You leave the chapel and look up at the sky and wonder if they are in it, not as stars, not as angels, but as something quieter, a wind that touches your hair, a breath in a dream, and when your own time comes, you hope, not for riches or wings, but for a hand to hold, a voice to guide you, a cloth soaked in warm water, a story told in your name, and a grave dug gently in earth that remembers your steps. Every village has one. Someone who walks just outside the line, everyone else stays within. Not quite part of the world, and yet always there, like a shadow at the edge of a candle's glow. Not dangerous usually, not violent, just other. A fool, some say, a trickster, a simple soul, a mad one, a blessed one. No one can quite agree, but everyone knows them, and everyone watches when they pass. In your village his name is Tom, or that is what people call him. You do not know if it is his real name. He might have had a different one once, long ago before his hair turned wild and his eyes began to look past you instead of at you. No one remembers now, or if they do not say it. Tom does not live in a house. He lives in an old cart, long since broken, half buried by the edge of the woods. The wheels are missing. Moss grows along its edges. He sleeps inside it, with rags for blankets and old bits of hay for a pillow. In winter, he wraps himself in burlap sacks and curls like a dog beneath whatever shelter he can find. Still, he survives. He always does. He speaks to birds, not in song, but in conversation. You have seen him sitting by the well, nodding thoughtfully, at a crow perched nearby, as if the two were debating theology. He makes up words. Names for things that already have names. He calls fire the red sleep. He calls water the quiet mother. He calls death the echo that sits. When he talks, like that, some people laugh, some frown, some cross themselves. He is not entirely useless, though. In spring, he finds mushrooms no one else can find. White, clean, soft as skin. In summer, he knows where the wild berries grow sweetest. He once caught a trout in a stream with only a string and a crooked nail. He gave it to the baker's boy who had not eaten meat in weeks. When asked why, Tom only smiled and said, "The fish owed me a favor." Children love him. They chase him like a game. They throw stones sometimes, but more often they follow him, hoping for a riddle or a joke. He obliges them with both. He tells them stories where pigs wear crowns and foxes give sermons. He makes them laugh until they forget their hunger. Mothers, tell them not to linger too long, but none forbid it entirely. Tom is strange, but not wicked, and in a world full of silence, strangeness can be a kind of light. Still, there are days when the village grows less patient, when the harvest is thin, when a cow goes missing, when a child falls sick and no cause can be found. On those days, eyes narrow, whispers spread. Tom walks more quickly. He does not stop to talk to birds. He does not linger near the chapel. He stays by his cart, watching the smoke rise from other people's chimneys. Once they nearly drove him out. It was years ago. You were a child. Someone's daughter had died. Suddenly, in her sleep. No illness, no injury. Just silence. And someone said they saw Tom outside her house the day before, muttering to himself. They said he was cursing her. They said he looked up at the roof and spat. No one remembered the moment clearly, but fear makes clarity irrelevant. A crowd formed. There were shouts, stones. Someone lit a torch. Tom stood still the whole time, holding something small in his hands, a piece of cloth, perhaps, or a feather. He said nothing, and then the midwife, old as tree roots, stepped between him and the crowd and said one word, "Enough." And just like that, it ended. No one said sorry, but the stones were not thrown. The torch was dropped. Tom returned to his cart, and the village continued. Now he is older, slower. His hair is white, his coat ragged. He no longer talks to the birds. He sings to himself instead. Quiet songs, tuneless but sweet. Sometimes you see him in the early morning, placing small piles of stones near the edge of the fields. You asked him once what they meant. He said they're memory markers, for things the earth has already forgotten. And you nodded, though you did not understand. Because Tom is part of the village now, like the well or the chapel bell. He is not quite loved, not quite trusted, but he is known, and in this world to be known, even a little, is something like belonging. You have never seen the king. You have only heard his name, spoken with care, carved on coins that pass from hand to hand like small, stamped prayers. You have seen the crest, on banners, on parchment, on the wall of the church where the colors have long since faded. But the man himself, he might as well be a myth. A shadow in a stone tower, a name carried by wind from a world too high to reach. But you have seen Father Renaud. He is not the king, not even a nobleman. But here in this village his word is law. He is the priest, the one who keeps the book, the one who hears the sins, the one who decides what is forgiven and what must be carried a little longer. He does not shout. He does not strike. But when he walks down the path to the chapel, robes brushing against the dust, people stop what they are doing. They stand. they nod. Children are pulled close. Conversations shrink to murmurs. His presence settles like snow, silent, heavy, changing the shape of everything it touches. He is not cruel. That must be said first. He blesses the dead. He feeds the hungry. He walks the sick to their graves when no one else will. But he sees everything. And you know he remembers it all. His hands are large, though not calloused. The skin is pale, unmarked by tools or fields. When he lifts the chalice, they are steady. When he gestures for silence, it comes. His voice is low, measured, deliberate. The kind of voice that makes you lean in, and then makes you ashamed for doing so. He lives in the rectory beside the chapel, alone. The windows are small, the door always closed. Some say he prays through the night. Others say he writes letters to the bishop, letters no one sees. There are rumors, always, but none are repeated too loudly. He hears more than he should. He knows when a girl has been visited in secret, when a boy has stolen bread, when someone buries a charm beneath their doorstep instead of crossing themselves. He does not punish, not in the way a sheriff might, but his sermons shift. The tone changes. One Sunday, he might speak of mercy. The next, he might speak of fire. And though no names are mentioned, you know when the fire is meant for you. Still, you go to him when your child is feverish, when your crops fail, when you have a dream that tastes like warning. You go. You kneel. You confess. You speak in a whisper, as if your sins are shy. He listens with his eyes closed, hands folded. When he speaks, he tells you what to do, not to fix the past, but to carry it more gently. 3. Our fathers. A candle lit, a loaf given to someone hungrier than you. There is power in that, quiet power, and you feel it when you leave his presence. Not fear, not quite peace, but a strange stillness, like a bell that has just stopped ringing. Some say he was not always a priest, that he once fought in a war, that he killed a man with a stone, that he lost someone, a wife, maybe, a brother. You do not ask. You only notice the way he stares at the crucifix sometimes, as though waiting for it to blink. And though he is not young, he never seems old. His beard does not gray. His shoulders do not sag. It is as if he exists in a different time, one where breath is measured and skin does not wrinkle and nothing can surprise him. On holy days he stands at the front of the chapel, robes glowing, with dust caught in candlelight. He raises his arms. He speaks blessings that do not sound like language anymore. They sound like wind moving through a forest. Everyone listens. No one moves. And when the blessing ends, you leave, not because you are told to, but because you feel you must. You step out into the light with something strange in your chest. Not joy, not guilt, something quieter, something that makes you walk straighter, think longer, bow your head when you pass his door. He is not the king, but his word is final, and here in this village that is power enough. Her name is Alice. No title, no surname, no known ancestors, no noble birth. Just Alice, of no place in particular, because the land itself has claimed her. The field knows her footsteps. The garden knows her hands. The village knows the shape of her back, bent before dawn, lifting water or smoothing soil. She is 37, and the lines at the corners of her eyes say more than years ever could. Her mouth rarely rests in a smile, but it moves kindly when she speaks. And when she does speak, people listen, not because her voice is strong, but because it is careful. She does not waste words. Alice lives in a house barely large enough for 3, though 6 have slept there at once. The walls lean slightly. The door sticks in winter. The hearth smokes if the wind comes from the east. But the roof holds, and there is always something in the pot. She calls that fortune, real fortune, not gold, not praise, warmth, bread, and someone to eat it with. She had a husband, Joran, tall, freckled, quiet. They met during planting season, when both were still more bone than flesh. He brought her a cracked comb the day they married. She still keeps it, not because she uses it, but because it still smells faintly of him, of sweat and wood smoke and springtime rain. He died 7 winters ago. He was gathering wood. A tree branch broke without warning. She still dreams of that sound, not the snap but the silence afterward. She has 3 children. One grown and gone, sent to serve in a manor 2 villages east. One married to a blacksmith's boy who never stops talking. One still at her knee, always sticky, always singing. They are loud and tired and sometimes cruel without meaning to be, but they are hers. She watches them sleep and feels something ancient stir. Love, yes, but also fear. The fear that she cannot keep them, that the world will take them before she can teach them everything. She knows the land, not just how it looks, but how it feels. She can taste the change in soil after a long dry spell. She can hear the worms before the crows do. She knows when a root will split, when a frost is false, when a cow is about to birth. No one taught her this. She simply noticed, over and over, for years. Alice remembers the bad year, the year of black bread and hollow cheeks, the year when every third house hung a strip of white cloth on the door, not as a banner, but as a warning. She remembers standing over a pot of boiled nettles, dividing it 6 ways, pretending her stomach didn't speak louder than her mouth. She remembers burying a neighbor's child when no one else would. She remembers walking into the chapel and hearing no sound, not even God. She does not speak of that year often, but when someone is hungry, she gives them more than she has. When someone is cold, she lends the coat she wore that winter, mended 12 times, still whole. People come to Alice for help, for advice, for the name of a herb, for the story of how to trap a rat without hurting it, for comfort, though she never promises it. She does not heal with hands. She heals with presence, with a way of being still enough that others can rest, near her. Her life is not easy. Her hands crack in winter. Her knees ache when she climbs stairs. Her dreams are often too heavy to carry into waking. But still, she wakes. Still, she kneads dough. Still, she pulls water from the well like it is the first time and not the 1,000th. And on some mornings, when the sky is soft and the earth has not yet asked too much, Alice will stand outside, hands on hips, hair undone, and breathe in the world like it owes her nothing, because it doesn't, and because she is still here anyway. That is the tale of Alice, not noble, not famous, but strong in the way stone is strong, silent, unshifting, always underfoot. And without women like her, the world would have slipped away long ago. He wakes before the light reaches the roof beams, not because he must, but because the road calls to him even in his sleep. His bed is a wool-stuffed sack, laid on the floor of whichever barn or guest loft he has bartered for the night. Today, it is a stable in a village that smells of peat, smoke, and boiled barley. Tomorrow, it will be somewhere else. That is his way. His name is Merton, though few ask for it. Most just call him the seller, or the man with the ribbons, or simply him. He does not mind. His name is less important than his goods, the combs, the beads, the needles, the thread, the dried fruits and cracked peppercorns, the mirrors, no larger than a fingernail, the pins for hair and hems, the salves that smell of far-off gardens. Little things, but things people want. He eats quickly, a crust of old bread soaked in watered ale. He checks the wheel of his cart, tightens the straps on his pack. The mule that pulls his wares blinks slowly at him. They've been together a long time. He speaks to it more than he speaks to most people. Not in words, always, but in breath and rhythm. The mule knows his pace. They set out with no fanfare. The road is mud. It always is, no matter the season. Sometimes baked hard like stone. Sometimes soft enough to steal your boot. Today, it clings to the cartwheels, slowing every step. But Merton does not curse it. He knows the road has moods. He walks with them. Over time, his feet have shaped themselves to its bends. His shoulders have shaped themselves to the weight of the pack. He reaches the village square before the sun. Finishes rising. People are already stirring. Smoke from chimneys. Roosters half-hearted. A dog barks but does not follow. He sets up by the well, as always, the place where water, talk, and need gather. He opens the cart slowly. One side folds down to become a table. The other holds a cloth, deep blue, that he smooths with the same care a priest gives to the altar. He says little. The goods speak for themselves. A spool of fine red thread draws a gasp from a girl who has never owned color. A comb carved with tiny flowers catches the eye of a woman with her hair tied in twine. He does not rush them. He lets them look. They always touch, gently, as though fearing the objects will vanish. Some do not buy. Some barter. Eggs, onions, a promise of flour after the next bake. He listens. He nods. He accepts what is fair. Children gather. They point. He lets them touch the tin bell, the scrap of velvet, the piece of sea glass smoothed by waves. He shows them the mirror, just once. They laugh at their own faces, then grow quiet, watching the reflection vanish back into the cloth as he folds it away again. He hears stories while he waits. A birth, a theft, a wedding planned for summer, a girl who ran off, a cow that gave, 2 calves, both dead. He listens. He remembers. Sometimes he passes news between villages, always gently. He does not speak of death too soon, or of blessings with too much certainty. His words are soft, weighted just enough to be carried, without breaking. By afternoon, his table is lighter. A pouch of coins, not full, but fuller than yesterday, sits near his belt. He does not count them here. He thanks the baker's wife for the apple. He repairs a broken strap with a piece of leather from his bag. He waters the mule. He watches the sky. Evening comes fast in these parts. Light slips away like breath from warm bread. He does not sleep in the inn. Too dear. Instead, he finds space in a loft above a weaver's shop. He trades a packet of needles for the straw. He eats alone, cross-legged, the candle low. A bit of cheese, a heel of bread, the last of the pair from yesterday. Enough. Before sleep, he checks his pack, counts his goods, feels the weight of his world. He murmurs a name once. No one hears it. Someone he lost, long ago, or someone he left. Then he closes his eyes. Tomorrow, he will move again. Another road, another fire, another name given and forgotten. He does not belong anywhere, not quite, but he is welcomed for a time, and for a man who carries his life on his back, that is enough. You did not plan to speak to him. He was just another figure near the fire. Older than some, younger than others, wrapped in a coat the color of old clay, the kind that clings to your boots in spring. He was quiet while the stew boiled. He did not ask for extra. He did not offer a name. He simply watched the flames, hands clasped loosely before him, like a man waiting for something he had already missed. You were sharing a bowl. Rough lentils, 2 chunks of carrot, broth made thin to stretch farther. He had not spoken the entire time you sat down, but when you looked up, he was watching you, not rudely, not with hunger or judgment, but with a kind of recognition that made you look away, and then, softly, he said, I saw a woman walk through fire, and I think she came out the other side. You blinked. You looked at him again. His eyes were gray, like wood ash soaked in snow. Calm, not mad, but not quite at ease in the world either. "I was younger then," he said, "not a boy, not yet a man, and I had been sent to fetch wool from the next village over. There was a shortcut, through the woods, past the place they say the ground never thaws. I took it. I was late. I was always late back then. I had no fear of shadows." He paused, to sip from his mug. Steam rose, and he squinted as though reading something in it. "I came to the clearing where the old chapel stood. You might know it, half buried in moss, stones black with time. They say it was abandoned during the plague. Roof caved in. Altar broken. But that night there was fire there. Not a campfire, not torches. Fire like breath made flame. It danced above the broken stone, not burning anything, just moving, like it was alive. You listened. You didn't mean to, but you did. Others kept eating, as if they did not hear. Perhaps they didn't. And in the middle of it," he said, lowering his voice, "stood a woman. Not young, not old. Her dress was nothing I recognized. Gray, layered, torn. Her hair was white, but not with age. She looked at me. Just once. And the fire moved aside for her, like a door opening." He paused then. "Long enough that you thought he had finished." Then he said, very quietly, "She wasn't a ghost. And she wasn't a saint, I think. She was something else, something that remembers what the world forgot. You asked what he did next." He smiled, small and strange. "I dropped the wool and ran. Not because I was afraid of her, but because I knew I was not meant to be there. She was walking through something older than time, and I was just a boy with cold feet." The fire popped beside you, casting sparks that did not rise. The others still talked of weather, of taxes, of animals gone missing. As if none of this was being said, as if none of it could be heard. You asked if he ever told anyone else. He looked at you again, not unkindly, but with a tiredness so complete, it felt holy. "Only once," he said, "to a priest. He told me it was a dream, that I had eaten something bad, that there are no women in flames who walk unharmed." I nodded. I agreed, but I never forgot her. I still see her sometimes. In smoke, in frost, in the way the light curls around my fingers in winter. Then he stood, bowed his head once, and walked away into the dark. You never saw him again. And though the others said nothing, you noticed. They stirred the fire with more care that night, that they crossed themselves before sleep, even if they hadn't done so in years. You never told the story out loud, but sometimes, in the depth of night, when the wind moves strangely through, the rafters and the fire hums without flame, you remember the man, the voice, the woman, the fire, and part of you believes. Not because it makes sense, but because you were there, and something changed in the room that night, and you have never quite been the same since. It happened in late spring, the kind of day when everything starts to smell a little too alive. The air thick with manure and blooming things, the mud halfway dried into uneven patches, and the sun trying its best to be generous but not quite succeeding. That was the day old Lenton declared himself king. He was not noble. He was not young. He was not particularly clean, but he stood in the middle of the village green, wearing a pot on his head and a cloak made from 2 stitched-together grain sacks, and with full conviction in his voice he announced, "I am now Lenton the First, rightful ruler of these lands, protector of chickens and banisher of Mondays." People stared. For a long time no one said anything. Then young Ada, who always asked questions at the wrong moment, called out, "Where's your throne, then?" Lenton looked around, squinted at the well, walked up to it, sat on the edge, and with a regal wave said, "Behold, And that was that. He sat there all morning, holding a wooden spoon like a scepter, nodding at passers-by, proclaiming nonsense laws such as, all sheep must wear ribbons on Thursdays. Children are now exempt from bedtime if they tell 3 good jokes, and anyone caught arguing about pigs must settle it through song. At first, people ignored him. Then they laughed. Then something strange happened. They started playing along. The blacksmith's apprentice brought him a plate with one single pea on it, bowed low, and called it a tribute. A shepherd presented a daisy crown. The baker sent a crust of bread, with a bit of old cheese announcing, "A royal feast for His Majesty." By mid-afternoon, the pot helmet was dented from too many mock salutes, the grain sack cape dragged behind him like a wilting flag, and Lenton, now flushed from the sun and ale, stood up solemnly and proclaimed, "Let it be known. The king must now name his kingdom." He looked thoughtful, tapped the spoon twice on the side of the well, paused, then said, "It shall be called Mudfordshire." There was a silence, then a single, strangled laugh from someone who immediately covered their mouth, then more laughter. Within moments, the entire green was echoing with it, thick, helpless, open-mouthed laughter that made people lean on one another just to stay upright. Even the priest, who rarely smiled unless someone was being married, or buried, was seen covering his mouth with his sleeve, eyes watering. And then, in that moment of shared ridiculousness, Lenton, flushed and pleased, turned in a slow circle and said proudly, "As your king, I thank you all, and now I abdicate." He bowed, tried to step off the well with dignity, missed his footing entirely, and fell into the trough head first. He emerged drenched, blinking, cabbage leaves stuck to his crown. The village applauded. And just like that, the reign of Lenton, the first, was over. He never did it again. Not once. When asked about it, he only shrugged and said, "It was a Tuesday. No one forgot it." Not because it changed anything, but because it changed everything, just for an afternoon. People who hadn't spoken in months shared cider that evening. Children spent the week declaring themselves rulers of back gardens and dung heaps. And even years later, when the air turned thick and the work grew hard again, someone would say the word Mudfordshire, and a tired face would break into a grin. In a world where most stories end in hunger or silence, this one ends in laughter, and sometimes that is more than enough. You wake slowly, not with the rush of alarms, but with the quiet certainty of cold. The air in the room is heavy with it, not sharp, not biting, but steady. It wraps itself around your nose, your ears, the bare skin of your arms where the blanket slipped away, in the night. You curl deeper into yourself, just for a moment longer, letting the warmth trapped in the mattress cling to your bones before it fades. You hear someone move, a soft rustle beside you, a cough, the creak of the floor under a shifting foot. Morning has begun, though the light has not yet filled the room. You open your eyes. The thatched ceiling above you is just barely visible, its edges blurred by shadow and smoke. Somewhere, a rooster calls, faint and reluctant. The sound of a fire being stirred reaches you, followed by the crackle of bark catching flame. The room begins to breathe. You stretch. Carefully. Your legs tangle with the coarse linen of the bedding. You feel the roughness against your skin. Not unpleasant, only honest. This cloth has been washed many times in cold water. It has been dried over smoke. It smells of home, of warmth, of work. You sit up, slowly. Your back aches in the way. It always does, a dull, even pressure that reminds you of yesterday's labor. You rub your neck, your shoulders, your temples. Then your hands find your folded garments beside the bed. They are still warm from being near the fire. A gift. Someone left for you, knowing you would need it. The first layer clings slightly as you pull it on. It is your chemise, Soft linen, loose, a little damp near the hems. You wrap your arms across your chest for a moment, not from modesty, but from habit. Then the kirtle. Wool, dyed deep brown from walnut husks, heavier than you remember. You fasten the bodice slowly, fingers moving by memory. Your cloak waits on a wooden peg. You will not need it yet. The morning work comes first. You step outside. The sky is barely light, the color of ash before it turns to smoke. The village is still. Smoke curls gently from the nearest rooftops, curling toward nothing. A chicken rustles in the straw near your door. A dog lifts its head from under the bench and watches you, then sleeps again. You walk across the yard to the well. Your feet remember the path, the dips, the soft frost that gathers on the shaded earth. The air smells of wet wood, of stone, of silence. You lower the bucket. The rope creaks. The sound echoes a little. When you draw the water, your fingers tremble from the cold. You carry it back slowly, careful not to spill. Each drop is work. Each drop is time. Back inside, the hearth welcomes you. Not with heat, but with light. A pot hangs above the coals. You pour the water. The steam rises, catching the sun just as it peeks through the shutter. You watch the mist, just for a breath, as it curls up toward the rafters. The house is waking. Someone murmurs behind you. Someone pulls on boots. Someone yawns. The day has begun. You are not hurried. You are not idle. You are part of the rhythm, as old as the earth beneath your floor. You wash your hands in the basin. You tie your hair back. You look toward the table, and you begin. You step out into the light, and it is different now. More certain, more gold than gray, though the sun is still low behind the hills. The mist has begun to lift from the thatch and earth, revealing puddles dried at the edges and footprints left by those who rose earlier than you. The village is no longer still. It breathes now, slowly, like a body beginning to stretch after a long sleep. Your first task waits in the garden behind the house. The path to it is damp, worn by many feet. You walk with your hem lifted, though you do not mind the dirt. The soil is cool and dark. You kneel to check the greens, not many yet, but enough to matter. A row of leeks, sharp and promising, some herbs that have survived the frost, sage, thyme, a stubborn sprig of parsley. You pluck what you need, holding them in the crook of your arm. Your fingers come away with earth beneath the nails. You will clean them later. From the garden, you move to the coop. The hens shuffle and cluck as you approach, feathers puffed, suspicious but familiar. You open the hatch gently, reach in. 2 eggs today, warm still, smooth against your palm. One of them is small, almost weightless. You smile a little. It is enough. Back inside, the fire is stronger now. Someone has fed it, tended it. The water in the pot begins to bubble. You place the eggs near it, rest the herbs on the table, brush dirt from your skirt with a steady hand. You find the flour, stored in a linen sack against the wall. You scoop it with care, letting the powder settle like snow across the wooden bowl. A pinch of salt, a bit of lard, saved from the last roasting. Cold water, just enough. You begin to knead. The motion is familiar. Your hands know the rhythm. Fold, press, turn. The dough sticks to your palms, then begins to pull cleanly away. You work it until it sighs beneath your weight. You cover it with cloth and set it by the fire to rise. You wash the bowl with a bit of ash and water. Every action is stitched to the next. Outside, voices rise. A child calling after a runaway goat. The low hum of a man sharpening a blade. A cartwheel creaking as it passes the well. Someone begins to whistle a tune that might be a prayer or just something to fill the space between chores. You head down, to the stream with a bundle of linens tied across your back. The path winds, narrow and half swallowed by bramble. You follow it without thought. The stream greets you with its cold voice, rushing softly over smooth stones. You kneel. Your knees press into the earth. You unbundle the cloth and begin. Scrub, rinse, wring. You work without rush, but also without pause. The water splashes your wrists. The wind touches your damp sleeves. Your mind wanders to the rising bread, to the market day 2 weeks away, to the child who coughed through the night and seems better now. These thoughts come and go like leaves in the current. You do not hold them. You let them pass. When you stand, your back protests, but you smile. It is a familiar ache. You carry the wet linens carefully, water dripping onto your shoes. By the time you return home, the dough is ready to bake. The fire is steady. The others have returned from their own morning tasks. You hang the cloth near the fire. You sweep the floor. You check the pot. And when you pause for a breath, just one, long and deep, you feel the shape of the morning settle into your skin. Not fast, not hard, just full. You do not speak of work, you simply live it. The scent comes first, not sharp, not rich, but full, of simmering root vegetables, of warming broth, of herbs pressed into the bubbling surface of the pot. It drifts across the floor, curling up around your ankles, rising into the folds of your sleeves, stirring something that began long before morning. Hunger, low and steady, now coming forward like a child stepping out of shadow. The others have returned. The door creaks open, then shut again. Someone leaves their boots by the wall. Someone else sits on the bench and exhales deeply, as if the walk back from the field took more than breath. You hear the familiar cough of an elder, the soft scuff of a child dragging their feet. No one speaks loudly. No one needs to. This is not a time for conversation. It is a time for bread. You reach for the round you baked earlier, cooled now, the crust hard and golden, the smell of flour and smoke still clinging to it. You slice it with a worn knife, the blade rocking gently back and forth. The crust cracks beneath the edge. The center is dense, slightly damp, but it holds together. You nod to yourself, pleased. It will do. The bowls are simple, wooden, smoothed by time and the rhythm of spoons. You ladle out the stew, thick now, having sat long enough for the barley to swell and the carrots to soften. It is not full of flavor, but it is full of care. It tastes of what you had. Nothing wasted, nothing too precious, just enough. You hand the bowls out one by one. You do not serve yourself first. You never have. The old man takes his with hands that tremble. The children cradle theirs with both palms, blowing softly before each bite. The others eat quietly, the sound of chewing blending with the low crackle of fire and the shifting of benches. You eat last, and when you do, you close. Your eyes for a moment. The bread is dry but warm from the bowl. The stew is soft. You chew slowly, letting the heat spread across your tongue, down your throat, into your belly. The hunger does not vanish, but it quiets. It steps back. There is little talk, a question about eggs, a complaint about a loose bootstrap, a reminder that the sky looked strange over the eastern ridge this morning. You listen, you nod, you speak only when needed. The food is the center now. The food is the prayer. When the bowls are empty, you scrape the last bits of broth with your bread. The children lick their fingers. One reaches for the pot just to see if anything remains. You gently swat the hand away. There must be something. For the evening, no matter how thin. You gather the bowls, wipe them with a cloth, rinse them with warm water. There is no soap, no perfumed lather, only ash and elbow, a scrubber of woven twine. You stack the bowls beside the hearth to dry. The fire crackles low. The light through the shutter is softer now, golden, as if the sun is beginning to lower its shoulders. Outside, the wind shifts. You feel it in your bones, in the way the house groans gently against its own frame. The children have already gone back out, chasing something only they can see. The others rise slowly. One sighs. One cracks their knuckles. One pulls on boots again, tying them with quiet resolve. No one asks for rest. There is more to do. There is always more. But for a while, there was warmth. For a while, there was food. And in this life, that is a kind of peace. The sun has turned now. You feel it in the light, not overhead, but lower, longer, slipping through the shutters at an angle that lands golden on the floorboards. It touches your shoulder as you work, soft and drowsy. The fire has settled into a quiet pulse. You no longer feed it as often. It simply breathes beside you, like an old dog too tired to beg for attention. You sit near the door. Not outside, not yet, but close enough to hear the bees. Their hum rises from the garden, folding in with the low coo of a dove nesting in the eaves. Someone is chopping wood across the way. You hear the thud, then a pause, then the thud. Again. You do not need to look. You know who it is by the rhythm. You pull the basket onto your lap. Inside, cloth torn at the knees, a shirt with a hole beneath the arm, a sock turned nearly to thread. You do not sigh. You simply begin. The needle finds its place, the thread drawn slowly, carefully without tugging. Each stitch is small, invisible, deliberate. Not perfect, but enough to last another season. Beside you, a child sleeps, or pretends to, his cheek against a folded cloak, his hair tangled from play, one shoe off, his breath soft even. You do not wake him. Let him stay here, in the warmth. Let the world wait to reclaim him. Outside, the older children have started a game. You hear them call to one another, names half sung, half laughed, rules changing. Mid-run, someone trips, someone shouts, someone begins a rhyme that has no meaning but makes everyone giggle anyway. You smile, though your hands do not pause in their stitching. There is time, now, for little things. A cloth to be dyed with elderberry, the juice dark as wine. A pouch to be sewn shut with careful knots. A skein of yarn to be untangled and rewound, its thread catching on your thumb like a cat's tail. These are not chores. Not quite. They are the quiet acts of keeping something whole. You glance at the sun. It is leaning into the trees now. The light has cooled slightly, tinged with blue. You stand and stretch. Your back cracks softly. You set the sewing aside, place a small stone on it to keep it from blowing away. You step outside. The air has changed. Warmer in places, cooler in others. The breeze touches your neck, moves through your sleeves. The chickens have wandered far from the coop, scratching beneath the fence where weeds grow wild. A cat lounges in the dust, tail twitching. She watches the world without interest, as if it will return to her eventually. You sweep the doorstep, a simple act. The broom is rough. The dust rises, settles, rises again. You think of nothing, or perhaps of everything. All the things you cannot say aloud but carry with you always, in the space between heartbeats, in the space between chores. Neighbor calls your name from the path. She waves, you wave back. That is enough. Later, perhaps, you will speak with her, share a crust of bread, a story, a moment. But not yet. For now, the day lingers. The light lingers. The breath of the afternoon stretches longer than it should, and you let it. You return inside. You finish your mending. You gather the bowls. For the evening. The child beside you stirs, rubs his eyes, smiles at nothing. You press a hand to his back. There is no music, but there is peace. And peace here is a kind of song. The sun has slipped behind the trees now, leaving a long, quiet, gold along the rooftops, the fences, the edges of the world. The shadows stretch across the yard, longer than your house, longer than your reach. You feel the air begin to cool, not with urgency, but with certainty. It brushes the skin behind your ears, slips beneath the collar of your kirtle. You pull, your cloak around you. The wool smells faintly of old smoke and dried lavender. You walk slowly through the house, closing shutters one by one. The hinges creak. You press them shut with a firm, familiar hand. The inside darkens with each window you cover. The light left behind is firelight now, low and flickering, painting long shapes across the floor. The room feels smaller. Not trapped, just held, like a closed book. Someone lays another log onto the hearth. Sparks rise, dance briefly, then vanish. The fire murmurs its approval. It will last the evening. The pot beside it has been refilled with water, for washing, not for eating. The bowls have been scraped and rinsed. The bread that remains has been wrapped in cloth, tucked away. Tomorrow's hunger will wait. You sit by the hearth with a comb in your hand. You draw it slowly through your hair, which smells of ash and nettle. The strands catch in the teeth. You are careful not to pull. Each stroke is slow, steady, like the swing of a pendulum. The room settles into your rhythm. The children are quieter now. One curls beneath a blanket, whispering to a doll made from twine and scraps. Another lies on the bench, eyes half closed, fingers tracing invisible lines across the wood grain. The older ones murmur to each other. Low words, half story, half memory. You do not listen closely. It is enough to hear the softness of their tones. It means the day has ended without pain. You wash your face with the warm water. A linen cloth, rough but clean. The water smells faintly of the herbs steeped in it earlier. Mint, a little chamomile, something else you cannot name. You press the cloth against your cheeks, your forehead, the back of your neck. Your skin sighs beneath it. The others begin to retreat to their corners, pallets of straw and wool laid out on the floor. A low sigh here, a muttered prayer there. A cough from someone who coughed yesterday, too. You take note of it, not fearfully, just gently. You make a place in your mind for it in case it matters tomorrow. You pull the blanket over your legs. It is scratchy and old and heavy, but it holds heat like a promise. You lie back on your mattress. Straw, mostly, with a bit of feather. In one corner. It rustles as you shift. You adjust the fabric beneath your head. The sound of it is soft, familiar. The fire is low now, just embers, pulsing like breath. You watch them for a while, blinking slowly. The patterns shift and fade. You trace stories in them, as you have since childhood. A horse, a tree, a hand reaching, a door closing. You stop trying to make sense of it. You just watch. Your thoughts do not end. They drift, small things like wool blown across a field. Did you collect the eggs? Did you mend the cuff of the shirt? Did you remember to say thank you to the neighbor who helped carry the pail? It does not matter. Not now. You hear the wind outside, soft against the thatch. You hear someone breathing near you. You hear the house creak as it settles. A slow, wooden sound, like a long exhale, and somewhere deep within your body, your own breath joins it. You do not tell yourself to sleep. You let sleep find you. You begin to notice the small things first, things you had forgotten while your hands were busy with wool and water, while your feet followed old paths through old dirt. Now they return. The floor beneath you is not earth-packed and uneven, but flat, even smooth. The air no longer smells of smoke and straw. There is a different kind of warmth here, the kind that hums from behind the walls, soft and obedient. You are not cold. You are not watching the flame to see if it will last. You simply are warm. There is light at your fingertips, not from tallow candles or a flickering hearth, but from something silent, clean, unseen. You do not strike flint to bring it. You do not beg the fire to stay lit. You only press a switch, and it is there, and your bed. It does not creak beneath. You does not need to be stuffed and restuffed with straw. It holds you like water holds a leaf. Your blankets do not scratch. Your pillow does not crumble. You are not sharing space with 3 others, curled together for warmth. You are alone, and you are not afraid. But there are other differences, too. Not all gentle. You remember the feel of wooden bowls passed from hand to hand, of bread that tasted of smoke and dirt and effort. Now, meals come wrapped and measured. You do not plant them. You do not barter for them. You do not kneel beside the stream to scrub the cloth you wore while eating them. The world you just left was slow. Hard, yes, but slow. Every task was a ritual. Every hour had its own shape. Now, hours run into each other like water spilled on a smooth floor. The day ends, and you do not always know what you did with it. Back then, there were fewer choices, but each one mattered. Each decision could shape your survival. Now, there are more doors than you can count, and yet you sometimes wonder if you ever really stepped through one. But it is not better or worse, just different. You carry both worlds, now, and maybe, in knowing how the past once felt against your skin, the present softens just a little. You have warmth now, always. Not the kind you fight for with firewood and blankets and body heat, but the kind that arrives with a murmur from inside the walls. You have light that waits for you, never fading, never flickering. You have medicine that reaches deeper than roots and tinctures ever could. You have knowledge, so much of it, so fast, so full. You can learn the world's secrets without stepping outside your door. You have comfort, and that is no small thing. And yet, you do not kneel in the dirt each morning to greet the work ahead. You do not feel your survival resting in your hands, in the strength of your arms, in the steadiness of your back. You do not walk 3 miles for water, but you also do not pause to thank the tap each time it opens. Your body remembers comfort, but it may have forgotten reverence. You have freedom to speak, to roam, to rest. You can be loud. You can be quiet. You can say no, and that is a powerful, beautiful thing. But you are also more alone than you were. The house does not creak with the weight of 3 generations sleeping in one room. Your children are not pressed against you. You are not warmed by their breathing. Their laughter does not echo around your ankles while you knead bread. You have your own room, your own space, and sometimes it is too much space. The old world was slow, terribly slow. Every task took time. Pain lived in the knees, the hands, the lower back. And yet, each day had a rhythm. You were never lost. Tired, yes, but not lost. You always knew what the next hour asked of you. You were always needed by someone or something. Now, you have hours that drift like fog. And sometimes, even in peace, you are unsure what to do with them. It is not a question of better or worse. That would be too easy. Instead, it is this. In moving forward, we have gathered miracles, but we have dropped a few truths along the way. And maybe, by remembering them, by kneeling in the dirt once in a while, by feeling how much bread matters, by holding another's hands in shared work, we can carry both gifts. We do not need to go back, but we do need to remember. You are back now. Or perhaps you never truly left. You are here, wherever here is for you. Your home, your room, your quiet place. The fire is not made of wood anymore. The walls do not breathe smoke, but you are still you. And the life you just touched, The life of rough wool, cracked hands, smoky kitchens, and silent strength. It rests beside you now like an old friend sitting at the foot of your bed. You remember her, the woman who woke before the sun, who carried water and watched over fire and kept everything going without asking for anything. She is still with you, not in some grand, dramatic way, not as a symbol, but simply as presence, as memory, as breath. That did not disappear. You remember the food that took all morning to prepare, not because it was fancy, but because it needed to last. You remember the warmth shared, not bought. You remember how dark the night could be, and how brave it felt just to lie down in it and trust the fire would hold until morning. And you carry that with you now, even in this modern life. You may never bake bread from scratch. You may never gather eggs with frost clinging to your sleeves, but you will remember the weight of labor that was never acknowledged, and how sacred that weight became when held with love. You are surrounded now by things those women never had, but you also hold things they did. Strength, patience, the wisdom of waiting, the quiet power of care. Those qualities did not vanish. They did not get lost in time. They traveled forward. In blood, in story, in gesture, they made it all the way to you. So breathe, deeply, slowly, like someone who knows how much it means just to be alive, and warm, and loved, and free. Let the night cover you now. Let the silence become gentle. And if you are tired, let rest come. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to lay everything down. The story has ended, but you are still unfolding. And tonight, that is enough. The world is hushed. Even your thoughts now are slow, like leaves floating on the surface of still water. You do not chase them. You simply let them drift. One, then another, until the surface holds only silence. There is no more fire to tend, no bread to bake, no heavy apron to untie. The day, with all its noise and need, has gone. It has not vanished. It has simply laid itself down beside you and closed its eyes. The village, the fields, the chapel, the worn paths lined with moss, they are all dim now, like candlelight behind thick glass. Still there, but soft, untouchable. You can feel them only in your chest, and that is enough. You are wrapped now, in cloth, in time, in quiet. You do not move because there is nowhere left to go. Your body belongs to the bed, to the weight of the blanket, to the rhythm of your own heart. Nothing is expected of you anymore. Not even waking, even the fire knows it is time. Its last flickers, stretch and shrink, like a child pulling the blanket up one final time. The warmth remains, but the light has dimmed. The room is dark, but not empty. You are not alone. You are just unseen, like a root buried deep, waiting for morning. You hear the wind, slow and low, like it too has tired of its journey. It brushes the walls with soft fingers. It does not knock. It does not howl. It is only there to remind you that the world still turns, even when your eyes are closed. You lie still. You breathe once and again. You do not measure the minutes. You do not count the hours. You simply sink, not into sleep, but into the feeling of being allowed to sleep. There is no fear, no sharp edges, no cold waiting at the threshold, only stillness, only rest. The story has no more to say. It has given you all it could, a day that was not yours but could have been, a life that was not gentle but taught gentleness, a time that does not ask to be returned to, only remembered, and so you do. You carry its weight, not in your hands, but in your breath. And as your breath slows, as your limbs grow heavy, as the quiet wraps around you like a second skin, you feel something else arrive. Sleep? not sudden, not loud, just here, like someone who waited at the door until you were ready to let go. The fire dims. The wind rests. You breathe, and sleep finds you, and if you are still awake, then congratulations. You have just survived a full day in a world you were never meant for. A world without clocks, without warnings, without guarantees. A world where survival was stitched into every breath, every meal, every walk to the stream. A world where being a woman meant being quiet and fierce in the same hour, being overlooked and depended on, all at once. A world that did not ask who you wanted to be, only if you would rise with the dawn and endure. And you did. You rose, you worked, you listened, you gave. You knelt beside the hearth and stirred the fire. You mended and you carried, and you held the weight of the day without needing thanks. You were unseen, and yet you held everything together. That was not your world, but tonight you made it through it. And now, you are here, in your time, in your room, in a life with doors and choices, with names remembered and voices heard. But maybe, as you fall asleep, a little part of that old world will rest beside you. A whisper of wool, a flicker of firelight, the sound of bread crust cracking beneath a careful knife. And maybe that whisper says, "You are strong, you are gentle, you are enough." So if your eyes are still open, let them close. If your hands are still clenched, let them open. If your heart is still carrying the weight of the day, this one or one long past, let it be held, just for now, by the quiet. You have done enough. You are safe now. You are home. Sleep well, dear traveler. The story will still be here if ever you need to return.